I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to catch my wife cheating, but here I am, living through it. Amanda and I had been together for about 5 years. We got married pretty young, and for the most part I thought we had a good thing going. She was hot, confident, a little bitchy sometimes, but I liked that about her. She knew what she wanted, and she wasn't shy about telling everyone, including me, exactly how she felt. We had our disagreements, sure, but I never suspected she'd cross the line into something serious. At first, I noticed little things. She started coming home later from work, sometimes claiming she was stuck in meetings or had to stay late to finish up a project. I figured maybe she was just busy, or maybe she was secretly trying to avoid me. I didn't push because I didn't want to seem paranoid. Still, I remember the first time I saw her texting someone, hiding her phone when I walked into the room. I didn't think much of it then. Just a quick glance, a fleeting suspicion. I told myself she was probably talking to a friend about a girls' night out, or some work thing. But then the signs started piling up. She started dressing up more often even when she stayed home. I'd come home from work and find her in the bedroom on her phone looking a little too comfortable. She'd brush it off, call me paranoid, or say she was just chatting with her sister or a coworker. Still, the feeling in my gut was gnawing at me. Something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. One day, I decided to check the security system we installed a few months back. Amanda had insisted on it, saying it was for peace of mind. But I knew it was also because I wanted to keep an eye on things when I wasn't home. I'd never really looked through the footage before, but I figured it was time to see what she was up to when I was at work. I set it up to record the entire house, especially the bedroom, because I was feeling more suspicious lately. Little did I know that decision would change everything. That evening, I sat down at the computer and reviewed the footage from the previous day. Nothing unusual, just some shots of the house, the dog sleeping, the mailman dropping off the mail. Then as I scrolled further, I saw her come into the bedroom. That wasn't strange, right? But then a guy showed up. Not just any guy, Tom, our home security installer. I'd heard Amanda talking about him, how he came to fix some issues with the cameras, but that's all I ever knew. What happened next knocked me on my ass. I saw her invite him into our bedroom. She was giggling, acting all flirtatious, and Tom, who I used to think was just a guy trying to do his job, walked in confidently. Then it got worse. I saw them on the bed, tangled up in each other, and from the way she was moaning, I could tell they'd gone at it. The footage recorded everything, her moaning, him kissing her, her hands all over him. I couldn't believe my eyes. This wasn't some innocent demo she lied about. They were having sex, right there in our bed while I was at work. I felt this surge of anger and betrayal so intense I swear I saw red. How could she lie so blatantly? How long had this been going on? I kept replaying the footage, trying to understand how she could be so brazen, so willing to cheat on me in our own home. It was like a punch in the stomach every time I watched her giggle and then start kissing Tom. I felt sick, but I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just pretend I didn't see it. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, feeling like my world was crumbling. I didn't sleep that night. The footage replayed over and over in my head, each time just making the betrayal feel worse. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I missed her sneaking around behind my back. I kept thinking about the mornings I'd wake up and find her already gone, or the nights she'd come home acting all aloof and defensive whenever I asked about her day. Now I knew she'd been lying, cheating, and sneaking around right here in our house. The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I needed to confront her. My stomach was in knots, but I knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my cool. When she walked in, I was already sitting on the couch, the laptop open and the footage ready to show her. She looked annoyed when she saw me there, crossing her arms and giving me that bitchy look she always pulled when she didn't want to talk. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked, acting like she didn't have a clue. "Don't play stupid, Amanda," I said, my voice low but firm. "I saw the footage. The one you claimed was just a demonstration of camera angles. That was you and Tom in our bedroom having sex. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes widened for a second, then she scoffed. "You're crazy. You're imagining things. That's not what it looks like." I hit play again, and this time I looked her straight in the eyes. "This is exactly what it looks like. Tell me, Amanda, how long have you been sleeping with Tom? Was it just once, or has it been going on for weeks?" She rolled her eyes, trying to brush past it. "God, you're so paranoid." Maybe I was just showing him the cameras, or maybe he was helping me troubleshoot. "You're overreacting. It's none of your business." I couldn't believe how she was lying so blatantly, twisting the truth to make herself look innocent. The anger boiled inside me. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I had trusted her, built my life around her, and now I found out she'd been sneaking around, straight in our bed, with some guy who was supposed to be fixing our security system. The thought of her pleasure, her moans, her hands all over him, it made me want to scream. I wanted to shake her, tell her she was a cheating bitch, but I just sat there, stunned. She continued to deny everything, spinning some bullshit about how she was just showing him the camera angles for work, how he was just helping her. I knew she was lying. The way she deflected, the way she tried to make me feel like I was crazy, that was classic Amanda. She always thought she could talk her way out of everything, that she could manipulate me into believing her bullshit. But I had seen too much now. The footage didn't lie. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt like I'd been sucker punched in the stomach. My eyes burned with tears I refused to shed. I couldn't believe she'd do this to us, to me, in the house we shared. That she'd lie so brazenly, so effortlessly. I felt a mix of heartbreak and rage. How could the woman I loved, the woman I married, be so vile? I thought about the moments we'd shared, the plans we'd made, and suddenly they felt so meaningless. It was like I'd been living with a stranger all these years, a stranger who was willing to cheat behind my back in our own bed. For hours I just sat there, staring at her, trying to process everything. Inside I was a mess, angry, hurt, confused. I wanted to lash out, to scream at her, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I just kept thinking about the betrayal, how deep it ran, and how I was going to handle this. I didn't want to be the kind of guy who threw his wife out immediately, but I also couldn't imagine staying with someone who lied and cheated so blatantly. I needed time to think, time to decide whether there was any way back from this or if I should just cut my losses. Over the next few days, everything felt like a blur. I couldn't focus at work, I couldn't sleep, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw her on that bed, moaning with Tom. I kept replaying the footage, trying to find some way to understand how she could be so cold, so dismissive of what she'd done. It was like she thought she could just lie her way out of it, pretend it never happened. But I wasn't buying it anymore. One night I finally confronted her again. I needed answers straight from the source, even if I already knew the truth. I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding like a drum. She looked annoyed, as usual, rolling her eyes at me before giving some snarky remark about how I was overreacting. That's when I lost it. "Enough, Amanda," I said, voice trembling with anger. "I saw the footage. I saw you and Tom in our bed having sex. How long has this been going on? Be honest with me, or I swear I'll lose what little patience I have left." She scoffed again, crossing her arms. "You're such a drama queen, so what if I did? It's not like I'm doing it anymore. It was just a one-time thing, a stupid mistake. You're overthinking it." That was the moment I realized she was still lying. The way she brushed it off, acting all indifferent, was infuriating. I looked at her coldly. "You're lying. You've been cheating on me for weeks. I saw the texts between you and Tom. You planned this whole thing in secret, didn't you? How many nights did you spend with him, pretending everything was perfect?" She rolled her eyes again, hurling some insult about how I was jealous and insecure. That made my blood boil. I felt the rage building up like a volcano about to erupt. I wanted to shake her, tell her how much I hated her for doing this, for destroying everything we had. But instead, I just stood there, feeling numb. In the silence that followed, I realized I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know the truth. I was furious, yes, but also deeply hurt. How could she be so callous? How could she betray me in the worst way possible and then act like it was nothing? I thought about all the nights I stayed up worrying, all the mornings I woke up feeling like something was missing. It was her, to her, the sex with Tom, the lies, everything. It was all her. I also thought about my own feelings. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tear her apart. Part of me wanted to forgive her and try to fix things, but deep down I knew that trust was shattered. How could I come back from this? How could I look at her the same way again? The betrayal ran too deep. I told her I needed some space to think. I told her I was hurt beyond words, that I didn't know if I could forgive her. She just shrugged and acted like I was overreacting, like she didn't care. That was the worst part, the indifference. It made me realize how little she valued what we had, or maybe she never did. Either way, I knew I had to make some hard decisions. I couldn't keep living like this, not knowing if she'd do it again or if she even cared about what she'd done. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever experienced. Every moment was filled with a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I kept going back to that footage, to the images of her on the bed with Tom. It replayed in my mind constantly, like some sick loop I couldn't turn off. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece everything together. How did I miss all the signs? How long had she been planning this? Was I just blind, or had I ignored the warning signs because I didn't want to believe she was capable of this kind of betrayal? Honestly, I felt like I was living in some terrible nightmare. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I thought I knew, and it was like she was a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her sneers, it all felt like a mask. Deep down, I knew she'd been acting different for a while, but I convinced myself it was just work stress or some phase she was going through. Now I saw it for what it really was: cold, calculated betrayal. One afternoon, I decided I needed to do something drastic. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I went online, started researching ways to legally get her out of the house, what my rights were, and how to protect myself financially. I wanted to be prepared for whatever came next. I wasn't planning to jump into anything rash, but I knew I had to start planning my next move. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever, knowing she'd been unfaithful and lying right to my face. That night, I confronted her again. I told her I was done with her lies, that I'd seen enough. I asked her why she did it, why she thought she could cheat on me and get away with it. Her response was something I didn't expect. She told me I was boring, that she needed excitement, that she was tired of the same old routine. She threw in some BS about how I wasn't paying enough attention to her, how she felt neglected. Honestly, I didn't buy any of it. That was just her trying to justify her cheating, like somehow that made it okay. I looked at her with pure disgust. You really think that excuses what you've done? You cheated in our house, in our bed, with some guy you barely knew, and now you're telling me it's because I didn't give you enough attention. That's bullshit, Amanda. You did this because you wanted to. You planned it. You lied to my face because you knew I'd never agree to this, but you didn't care. You took what you wanted, and now you expect me to just accept it. She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she just shrugs and dismisses me with a whatever attitude. That was the moment I realized she didn't even care about us anymore. All her bitchy, dismissive attitude, her lies, they were just her way of avoiding accountability. But I was done accepting her excuses. I felt sick, but also oddly relieved. I knew I had to do something. From that point on, I started making plans. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. I called a lawyer, started looking into getting a separation or divorce. I didn't want to be married to someone who thought she could cheat and lie her way out of it. I was angry, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic situation, not without losing myself. I had to break free from her, and I was going to do whatever it took to protect myself. My mind was made up. I was done being the fool in this story. The decision to move forward wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I spent the next couple of weeks building a plan. I kept the footage to myself, not even telling my friends or family what I'd seen. I knew I had to be careful. You never know what kind of reaction Amanda might have if she found out I was planning to leave. I also started packing a bag secretly, just in case she got wind of my intentions and decided to turn it into an argument or worse. Meanwhile, Amanda continued her bitchy attitude, acting like nothing had changed. She'd throw her little jabs, act like she was still the queen of the house, all while I was quietly gathering my strength. I'd catch her sneaking texts or deleting things from her phone, trying to hide evidence. I didn't need her to admit anything. just knew I couldn't stay with her any longer. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. One evening I finally sat her down, telling her I was leaving. I didn't give her much of a chance to argue, just a simple statement that I wasn't willing to live with the betrayal anymore. Her reaction was classic Amanda, screaming, calling me crazy, throwing insults, trying to make me feel guilty for abandoning her. But I just looked at her coldly, knowing this was the end of the line for us. I told her she'd burned every bridge, that I'd be filing for divorce, and that I was done with her lies. That night was a whirlwind of chaos. She kept trying to guilt-trip me, claiming I was overreacting, that I'd regret it, that she loved me. But I knew better. Love doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, and it certainly doesn't do it in your own bed. I packed my things, left that hellhole, and moved into a friend's place. I felt relieved but also empty. I was angry at her, at myself for trusting her, and at the whole situation for turning my life upside down so fast. What haunted me most was just the betrayal. It was the realization of how much I'd overlooked, how much I'd ignored because I didn't want to believe the woman I married was capable of this. I kept asking myself why she did it, what caused her to become this kind of person. But deep down, I knew some things you just don't get answers for, and some betrayals cut so deep they leave permanent scars. Still, I was determined to rebuild my life, no matter how painful it was. I knew I couldn't stay in that toxic marriage, not anymore. It was time to start healing, even if the wounds were still fresh. In the weeks that followed, I tried to focus on myself. The house felt empty without her, but honestly, I was relieved. I didn't realize how much I had been carrying, her lies, her betrayal, the constant feeling of doubt, until I finally cut her out of my life. I started going out more, spending time with friends, and even seeing a counselor to process everything. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I'd lie awake thinking about what I lost, what I could have done differently, and whether I'd ever truly trust again. But I also felt a strange sense of liberation, like I'd finally taken back control of my life. Looking back, I see how blind I was for so long. I ignored the small signs, the little lies, because I wanted to believe in us. I convinced myself she was just stressed or distracted, never really thinking about how she could betray me in our own home, behind my back. The footage was a gut punch. I still can't watch it without feeling sick. But it also woke me up. It made me realize that sometimes people are just not who you think they are. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, and forgiveness isn't always the answer. Sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away and rebuild from scratch. I don't regret leaving. If anything, I regret not seeing the signs sooner. But I do regret trusting her blindly, accepting her lies for too long. Now I know that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. Anything less isn't worth the pain. To anyone out there dealing with something similar, I'll say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want things to be okay. And if you find proof of betrayal, don't be afraid to stand your ground. It hurts, but it's better to face the truth than to live in a lie. You're stronger than you think, and eventually you'll come out on the other side. It's not about revenge, it's about reclaiming your peace and dignity. I may be healing now, but I'll never forget what happened. And honestly, that's okay. It's part of my story, one I can finally own.